Know Your Candidate. Presented by Portland is Possible, broadcasted by XRAY FM. In this segment, we offer a brief background on the visionary candidates that are proudly standing and running for the acclaimed Portland Area City Council. For now, we have a candidate of District 2 that incorporates St. John's, Kenton, Hayden Island, Mississippi, and Alberta neighborhoods.
Hi, my name is Kanal. I'm running for Portland City Council in District 2.
What hazards do you foresee in the city's future that we can start planning for now?
Yeah, I think the hazards that we should really be focused on, there's a lot that could happen in the future, but the ones we know will happen are around climate and extreme weather. There's a lot that we can do to build our resiliency to the changes that we anticipate coming, and also to help mitigate and reduce those problems. In my district, we have issues around the perceived and eventual impact of the CEI hub, which is not in the district, but which is very close to us. We also have pollution from leaded gasoline. We have the liquefaction zone for, if there's an earthquake. There's a lot of different things that we have up in North Portland, and then along the freeway, we have a lot of pollution as well. Part of what we can do is, shade equity. Part of what we can do is changing what we allow to be stored or transported through Portland, especially the things that aren't going to be used here. And there's a lot that we can do to mitigate and also prepare for whatever changes may come in terms of climate and extreme weather.
Can the city best support Indigenous cultural preservation?
Yeah, so first we need to meet with Indigenous groups and ensure that Indigenous people are a core part of our planning, right? We should not be the city from the outside preserving Indigenous culture. It should be a co-creation of policy. We have to listen and co-create. Portland has the 9th largest urban Indigenous population of any city in America. We also have several, reservations nearby to talk to, and our relationship with that community needs to be bolstered over time as well, in terms of the staffing we put towards it and things like that. We need to promote traditional ecological knowledge and land management practices so we have a better system of environmental stewardship. We need to respect Indigenous knowledge around things like place names. And so talking about Wapato Island instead of Savi Island, for example. We need to support the state task force on tribal cultural item preservation and the other institutions that exist in terms of our relationship with the state or the county or whatever layer of government is doing that work, so that we're fully supporting it. In brief, we need to fund the work, and we also need to repatriate cultural items.
How can we make it easier for Portlanders to get to the central city by bike and transit pathways?
Yeah, so the first thing we need to do is make clearer decisions and make it public which roads are designed to be driven on fast and which ones are designed to be driven on slowly. We do have way too many streets in the city that are trying to be both at the same time. The second thing is expanding our urban trail network, more greenways. When you ride a bike along Division or Powell or Hawthorne, you're not actually usually riding it along those. You're riding it one block off, like Ankeny relative to Burnside, which is already a greenway. We need to be institutionalizing that generally so that the major east-west and north-south roads, one block off in either direction, is becoming a greenway. The third thing we need to do is make it easier to ride public transit by expanding the system. In my district, I support a light rail line along Lombard-Columbia corridor from St. John's to the airport. Within the central city, I would say the streetcar makes more sense to focus on there in terms of potential expansions and making it easier to get around in the city using public transit. And finally, I would say we also need to have fast, frequent, and eventually fareless transit again. I grew up here during the era of Fairless Square in the central city. That's something we can bring back if we make it a priority. I'd focus on expanding the system and getting more ridership first, but that's definitely a long-term goal as well.
What is your vision for how Portland transforms in the next 10 years?
So we need to have more connectivity, more inclusivity, more equity. We need to have better investments. Less precarity will result from all of that, so that people aren't one paycheck away from, or one bad month away from being homeless or having some other sort of negative interaction. We also need our city to listen to people, because a city that listens is safer and more prosperous for all of us. When I built my platform, it's based off of what I hear doing community engagement and as a candidate talking to folks. So that includes community safety for all, infrastructure for all, and housing for all, which covers housing affordability and ending unsheltered homelessness. So community safety for all looks like help when you need it, a government that doesn't harm you or is held accountable when it does. That includes things like safe routes to school, paving potholes, and making sure that our kids can get to and from schools and parks safely. It includes fully funding and resourcing Portland Street Response so it can operate 24/7 citywide, dispatch with 911. I'm the only candidate for city council in any district that's worked directly with Portland Street Response. And it also includes activating spaces, because active spaces are safe spaces. You put good pro-social activity in a park, it makes it harder for antisocial activity or crime to grow. Infrastructure for all, we've talked a lot about that with transit in the previous question. And then housing affordability and houselessness, that relates to building so that we have new market rate affordable, subsidized, and social housing to meet the population now and the population growth we expect. And interventions in the policy space to keep those in the market. We need to make sure that we are protecting people from becoming homeless in the first place by ensuring that we have Renters' Bill of Rights protections, like ensuring people aren't evicted during an extreme weather event for an incomplete rent payment. And then we also need to make sure that we are helping people get into shelter. So we have things that are working at the city now, like the Shelter Services Program, that we need to scale up and make the default as opposed to brutalizing homeless people. And I think between all of those, we'll be able to build that up and succeed in the future.
As a city councilor, who would you go to first when looking for ideas and insights for developing a vision for the city's future?
The first people I would go to are the people I've always gone to in my day job at the city. That is the community. As project manager for the Police Accountability Commission, we reached thousands and thousands of people. 1,500 people weighed in on the process and gave their input. Several hundred more attended meetings, watched along, and were a part of the process. Community knows what we want, and we communicate that to the city. Too often, that's the end of the story, and it should be the beginning of one. And so I would start by reaching out to first general mass outreach, but also to the people most affected by whatever the subject is. So in the case of the public safety space, we're talking about victims of crime, we're talking about people who've been over-policed, we're talking about people with mental illness, people of color. There's a lot of different groups that are heavily affected, and we also have the mass outreach alongside it. So that's a big part of it, and that's where I'd start. The next thing is this is not a new thing that I should mention here. It's something that we've seen effective leaders in the city do already. Commissioner Hardesty has built a lot of the public safety approaches she took out of reaching out to community and being informed by it, by what she hears back. And then the last thing I'll say is after that, you do need to talk to experts, specifically experts from around the world who've succeeded at what the issue is we're trying to solve. And that's how we learn about the particular methodology of how we get from here to there. But in terms of what the destination is, I'm always going to trust in the community first.
Lightning round. What events or place in Portland that no longer exists do you wish you could bring back?
The montage, so that kids have a place to go late at night and hang out and don't have to be 21 to go there.
What place in town that more people should know about?
Kaba's Kitchen. I go to the one on Alberta, I get the Yassa, my partner orders the Theo Bullet.
If you could wave a magic wand to make one thing happen in Portland, what would you do?
I would build the lid over I-5 now without doubling the width of the freeway, using good union jobs to build the construction, help support the integration of a community, the largest restorative development project in the United States, and a big part of healing the wound left by I-5's creation in the first place.
What is a single word you would want to use to describe Portland in 30 years?
Connected.
Would you describe Portland as more grunge, more jazz, or more indie pop?
As a 90s kid, I gotta go with grunge. It's a genre that was defined by people outside of it. It was defined by what it wasn't. It was a genre that was very diverse within it, and it also had a lot of the values we talk about now in terms of supporting human rights, in terms of a lot of feminist bands out there at that time as well. And I think that really adequately and accurately describes Portland today too.
So now you know your candidate, or a bit about them. We like to thank the visionary candidates, also like to especially thank all the volunteers and organizations that put this together. We couldn't do this without you. To look at each candidate, be a good Portland citizen, and to be a dashing and informed voter, listen to XRAY FM to learn about ballots and the new ranked choice voting system. And check out portlandpossible.org.